Hi, this is Tony with Meraki, and today we're looking at WannaCry, a very recent outbreak of ransomware that infected over 150 countries around the world. And we're actually going to take a look at how the Meraki MX had a lot of customers protected throughout this outbreak around the world. So many of us have already seen some of the research that has gone into WannaCry. You can see a screenshot to my left of the actual ransom note that an infected PC's owner will receive. And there's a couple of things worth noting about this particular cyber attack. The first is the rate at which it spread. It spread to hundreds of thousands of systems around the world within a matter of days. Um, it also used several what could essentially be considered as zero-day vulnerabilities, or at least several very recently exposed vulnerabilities within the Microsoft operating system. And it also had tremendously massive implications for organizations around the world. Estimated losses were at or above 4 billion. Now, if we take a look at how this threat evolved, it's quite interesting. Originally, the Shadow Brokers, a group of hackers who showed up quite recently and essentially around August 2016, made mention of the fact that they had certain tools stolen from purportedly the NSA and that they were planning on releasing them. Then in January of this year, of 2017, they did in fact put those tools up for auction. And then naturally, Microsoft, having seen the details of those collections of tools, immediately learned about them. The first samples of WannaCry showed up about a month later. And then in March, several research firms around the world, security research firms, detected the threat, essentially reverse engineered it, and then created signatures for them. That includes Snort, which the Meraki IDS IPS system uses. Microsoft also, around that same time, releases an update for their currently supported operating systems. Then, of course, on May 12th is when the major outbreak took place. And of course, around the world, any network running the Meraki MX with AMP and IDS IPS was completely protected so long as they had the updated signatures and roles. And the only thing needed there is a connection to the internet. And that's really when the WannaCry ransomware outbreak went full scale. Now you can see actually in this animated version, compliments of New York Times, how quickly that threat spread, and you can see kind of the hot spots throughout the world, predominantly in kind of Europe, Central Europe, and Eastern Europe, but also throughout Southeast Asia, certainly some parts of the United States, as well as the broader North and South America as well. So really interesting and quite insightful, and you can see just how quickly this threat spread around the world. Now, if we take a look at the anatomy of this threat and the attack, the initial kind of attack vector or cause of the threat is still unknown and under investigation. Um, the first kind of executional stage of the software, once a system is infected with it, will invoke the SMB protocol. So this is a Microsoft sharing protocol. It takes a look to see if it can find other systems that have an open port so that it can spread unnoticed. It will then also attempt to propagate using double pulsar. Double pulsar is actually a backdoor tool which was allegedly developed by NSA and leaked also again by shadow brokers. Um, and that is a tool, essentially that backdoor was then used to propagate this WannaCry ransomware to other systems. Then secondly, Eternal Blue, excuse me, another tool or exploit, again also leaked by the shadow brokers, was something that could be used to scan other systems for the double pulsar exploit. So it's essentially, these are all crutches that the ransomware uses to try to propagate to other systems on the same network. Then the software will launch a Tor client, which was used to anonymize traffic or communications between the ransomware and its communication servers. At the same time, the software starts encrypting the data on the system. So this could be photos, music, important documents. It essentially then holds ransom the files on the system, puts up that notice and claims that if you pay some dollar amount, I believe it started at 300, that in Bitcoin, that you will get your files back, and only if you pay that amount. Some of the latest intel, and this is still, of course, evolving as research moves ahead on the threat. Over 200,000 infected devices, over 120,000 paid in ransoms, although that is not advised. So if you do have a system that was affected by this, there are kind of steps that are advised to take by the research institutions around the world, including Cisco's own Thales. And then over 100,000 organizations were crippled by this threat, so quite substantial numbers there. Now, if we take a look at this through a lens of an Meraki MX security appliance, so this is Meraki's unified threat management offering. It supports a very vast variety of different features and capabilities, including Snort IDS and IPS, intrusion detection and prevention, which was quite prominent as it pertains to the WannaCry threat. And then also another feature which is key is AMP, and we're going to talk about these in more detail. But you can see that this is a snapshot of an actual infected network, and you can see we filtered within the Meraki Security Center by one of the Snort rules, which was created when WannaCry was spread. And then you can also see the actual event. You can see that the Eternal Blue variant Trojan was detected, which is, again, remember, a component of WannaCry. And you can also see down here in the events list, you can see the alert and the fact that the threat was in fact blocked. So the great news is that if you're a Meraki MX customer and you had IDS, IPS, as well as AMP enabled, you would have been fully protected against the outbreak that we've been talking about. Now, if we take a look at the coverage and defense mechanisms holistically that the Meraki MX with advanced security features enabled offers, you can really think of it in these four ways. Of course, IDS, IPS, as we've talked about, with the fact that the Meraki cloud always ensures that that device is going to be running the latest Snort signatures, which is really key there. The AMP feature, which is anti-malware protection, it will really act as a kind of a protector for any files that are getting downloaded, and it will block anything that is determined as part of this threat. Firewalling, of course, is key, especially for some of those propagation methods that the software uses. So making sure that you have firewall rules to prevent spreading of threats across the SMB ports, for example, where they shouldn't be going. Certainly inbound on port 445 SMB port, in through your firewall, for example. And then lastly, the software update capabilities that the MX Security Appliance actually offers. Now, this doesn't necessarily apply directly here because we didn't push out a software update to the security appliances, but this is a tremendously powerful capability that we offer with our cloud managed devices in general, so it's worth noting here.